When I first saw her, I was only 16 years old. I saw her for just a few seconds, but after that, my life and the lives of those I knew were never the same. It was around 9 in the evening. The sun had already set, but the moon was hidden under a thick layer of murky clouds, just like the stars. It was pitch black, and the steam rising from the rain distorted visibility even more. The asphalt on the street had been laid just a few days ago, so it still gave off that characteristic smell. Raindrops pounded against it at a frantic speed, creating a steady noise. Aside from the sound of these drops, nothing else could be heard, as if the street were dead. I live in a very small town. 2 months ago, our school was closed, and now I am forced to attend a school in the neighboring town, which takes 2 hours to get to and just as long to get back. I study on the second shift, so every day at around 3 o'clock, I have to be at the bus stop. It is located right at the intersection, and there are always a lot of people there. For about 15 minutes, I wait for bus number 40. It's an old yellow bus that seats about 15 to 20 people heading to the neighboring town. The windows of the bus are covered with black plastic, so you can't see anything out of them. The seats are rough, old, and often broken. The metal at the base and near the doors is rusty, and hanging by every seat is an icon. It's safer that way, the driver says. The bus is always full and always with the same people, so we agreed that each passenger would have their own seat where they would always sit, just to avoid arguments. I sit on the left side. Only one pair of seats separates me from the driver. The passengers on the bus are all different: old, young, workers and retirees, ladies and gentlemen. But that never bothers us. It's always noisy on the bus. We talk, we laugh, and if we fall silent, the driver joins the conversation. He hates it when it's quiet and always finds a topic to discuss. When we finally reach the city, the bus disappears over the horizon. My classes end at 6 o'clock. I'm very lucky with this because at 6:15, the bus returns to the stop, and we all return home with the same group. By 8, we are home. That's how it was, that's how it is, and as I thought, that's how it would always be. But today something happened that completely changed my views. In the morning, everything was as usual. We got on the bus and headed to the city just like always. The oddities began only on the way back home. As soon as I left the school, it started to rain. At first, it was light and sparse, and I thought I could comfortably walk to the bus stop at that pace. It was only a 10-minute walk. And yes, I actually made it to the stop comfortably and didn't even get wet. Sitting under the roof of the bus stop, I watched as the weather refused to change. The rain continued to fall lightly. It was strange, of course, because I was completely alone at the stop. People hadn't started gathering yet, even though by this time half the passengers should have already been there. The only one who approached me was a huge stray dog. She walked right up to me, and honestly, I was a little scared. She began to stare at me with her huge eyes and shook her head toward the school. I was forced to look away from the sunset and tried to scare off this red dog. But not only did she not leave, she continued to point toward the school. Soon, another dog joined her and started nodding in exactly the same way. Then another, and another. I lost interest in them because they didn't come close to me. But as soon as they caught the scent of some wind, they frantically began to run in my direction. I quickly jumped onto the bench, but they grabbed the cuffs of my pants with their teeth and started pulling me in the direction they were pointing. They growled but didn't bite, only pulled. But suddenly one of them stopped abruptly and barked. The other dogs also stopped, froze for a second, looked into my eyes, and quickly ran in the direction they had been pulling me. One small black puppy stayed behind and continued to pull me, but its mother ran up, lifted it by the scruff of its neck, looked sadly into my eyes, and ran off. I never understood what that was, but then I heard a familiar sound. Finally, the bus arrived, although I was still the only passenger. The bus opened its doors, and without thinking, I went inside. It was completely empty. There was no one, something I had never seen before. I thought the passengers just hadn't arrived yet and headed to my seat, but the bus doors closed and I heard the sound of the engine. The driver would never do that. He would have waited for everyone. So I asked him, "What happened? Why are we moving? Why aren't we waiting?" But the driver didn't answer my questions. He didn't even make a sound, as if he wasn't there. I asked again. Same answer. It was strange, very strange, but I was so tired and frightened by the dogs that I just wanted to sit down and go home. I finally reached my seat and noticed a very strange detail. The icon was gone. And not just mine. They were gone everywhere, except for the seat right behind me. There, the icon remained as it was, and even the dust had been wiped from it. The bus finally started moving. I was in my seat, fastened my seatbelt, and heard a strange sound from behind. The icon had fallen. I wanted to fix it, but the seatbelt jammed and I couldn't unbuckle it. It was very awkward and quiet. I tried to talk to the driver, asked about the weather, talked about my day, about his day, but it felt like I was talking to myself. I couldn't even see the driver's shadow, and honestly, I started to feel uneasy. As we drove, the weather kept getting worse. The light rains seemed to get heavier and hit the window more frequently, but since they were tinted, I saw nothing. Because of the weather and the time, it was very murky. Everything was gray, and the only warm light came from the bulb hanging by the door. The rain beat harder against the windows, and the lightning struck as if a bomb were exploding. That's how the first half of the trip went. But as soon as we reached the outskirts of the town, the light by the door went out, and the murkiness grew. Suddenly, the bus stopped abruptly. I didn't even ask a question, but my heart began to beat at an immoderate speed. Yes, I started to feel afraid, and the fact that I didn't know what to be afraid of made it even scarier. The bus doors opened. I couldn't really see if anyone entered, and as soon as I tried to get up from my seat, the seatbelt began to crush me. Soon the doors closed and the bus continued on its way. I shouted, "Hey, is anyone here?" To which I heard a knock. I was genuinely terrified. That meant someone was here. I repeated the question and asked a few others, but no answer followed. Must be a coincidence. If I didn't count everything I had imagined out of fear, this trip wasn't so much scary as it was strange. Soon, what I had been waiting for so long finally happened. We reached the town. That's it? I'm home? Just 15 minutes left, and we'll be at the stop. Glancing at my watch, I discovered that it was already 9 in the evening. This was an hour longer than usual, but we had been moving at the same speed as always. Where did the hour go? I wondered deeply about this question, but very quickly forgot about it because we reached the stop. The bus doors opened and rain immediately got inside. It was so fast as if it were pouring artificially. I carefully tightened my hood and quickly stepped out of the bus, right under the roof of the stop. It was very dark and there were very few people, which is uncharacteristic for such a place. Everyone was rushing somewhere, and the only calm ones were the sellers of umbrellas and raincoats. There were several of them sitting in their tents, calling out to people, but one of them particularly caught my attention. It was a man in a white tent, of whom only a silhouette was visible. He was as quiet as possible, and when people approached him wanting to buy a raincoat, he chased them away. I didn't have any money with me, so I couldn't buy anything. I just sat on the bench under the roof and waited for the rain to end. But suddenly, the seller from the white tent began to stare intently at me. I immediately felt his gaze. He came out and started approaching me. A tall man whose entire body, including his face, was covered by a white raincoat. Approaching me, he handed me a gray transparent cloak and said in a high artificial voice, "I saved this for you for free. I was simply speechless, but I took the raincoat and thanked the gentleman. By the way, it fit me perfectly. Of course, it was annoying that when drops hit it, a sound of breaking glass could be heard, but it shined beautifully, and I was willing to close my eyes to that. From the stop to my house, the road was short, a 5-minute walk. Halfway there, I always stopped by the store to meet my neighbor and walk home together. The entire road was one long, straight street with houses on both sides, and in the middle, a long road of nothing, not even street lights or lamps. The rain beat straight into my face, and even the raincoat didn't protect me. I ran, covering my face with my hand, seeing nothing and hearing only the noise of the rain. I relied exclusively on my sense of space, and just ran with one thought: get to the store. Finally, when I went inside, my neighbor wasn't there because I was an hour late. I decided to stand under the store's roof for a bit and rest. Suddenly, I started to feel someone's breathing approaching me. Someone tall stood right behind me, breathing warmth onto my ear. "It's you, isn't it, Mr. Gray Coat?" I was terribly frightened, didn't know what to answer, and decided to quickly turn around and hit him. But as soon as I turned, there was no one there. Just some book dangling under my feet. It was a thick, small book with a black leather cover. I looked around. There was no one, so I decided to bend down and pick up the book. As soon as I bent down, a girl in uniform walked up to me, said hello, and hung several posters on the store wall. Taking this mysterious book, I placed it between my hands and started reading the poster. It was a traditional mourning poster. When someone from our town died, posters were hung about their passing so everyone would know. The poster spoke of the death of a certain Stephen Orr, who had died this very morning. A very familiar name, I thought, but where had I heard it? I don't know, I thought, shook my head, and decided to read the second poster. It was a job advertisement. A transport driver was needed for city bus number 40. And then I remembered. Stephen Orr, that is the driver of bus number 40, who, as it says, died this morning. But then